Some moments change everything. They arrive unannounced, disguised as ordinary Tuesday evenings or casual conversations over coffee. You don't see them coming until they've already reshaped your entire world. For me, that moment came on a rain-soaked November night when my best friend of 7 years looked at me with eyes I'd never seen before and said 5 words that stopped my heart. "I can't stop thinking about you." But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, or rather, where I thought it had ended. I met Marcus Chen during freshman orientation at Northwestern. Back when we were both 18 and convinced we had the world figured out. He was the guy everyone noticed, not because he tried, but because he didn't have to. 6 feet tall with an athlete's build, dark hair that fell perfectly even when he'd just rolled out of bed, and a smile that could disarm anyone within a 10-foot radius. I was the scholarship kid from a small town in Ohio. Overwhelmed by Chicago's skyline and desperately trying to look like I belonged, we were randomly assigned as partners in Chemistry 101, and I remember thinking the universe had a cruel sense of humor. Here I was, a gay kid who'd just come out to his parents the summer before graduation, paired with the kind of guy who represented everything I'd spent high school pining after from a safe distance. "I'm Marcus," he'd said that first day, extending his hand with an easy confidence I envied. Fair warning, I'm terrible at chemistry, like catastrophically bad. My high school teacher said I was a danger to myself and others. I'd laughed despite my nervousness. "I'm Ethan, and I'm pretty good at it, so maybe we'll balance each other out." "Thank God," he'd said, his shoulders visibly relaxing. I was worried I'd get stuck with someone who'd let me blow us both up just to improve the class curve. That was Marcus disarming. Self-deprecating and genuine in a way that felt rare among our peers who were all trying so hard to impress each other. We fell into friendship the way some people fall in love, easily, naturally, without questioning whether it made sense by sophomore year. We'd moved into an off-campus apartment together with 2 other guys. By junior year, it was just the 2 of us in a cramped 2-bedroom in Wrigleyville. We developed the kind of shorthand that only comes from proximity and genuine, action-inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else. The ability to communicate entire thoughts with just a look. Knowing exactly how the other took their coffee and what TV show would fix a bad day, Marcus dated girls. A lot of girls. He had a type-smart, ambitious, usually brunette. They'd last anywhere from a few weeks to a few months before the relationship would fizzle out. Usually because Marcus got too focused on his architecture program, or because the girl wanted more emotional availability than he was capable of giving. I dated too, though less frequently. Coming out had been liberating, but navigating the gay dating scene in college was its own education. I had a few boyfriends, nothing that lasted longer than a semester. Marcus was supportive in the way straight allies often are, asking about my dates, offering advice when relationships ended, never making it weird. And I was fine with that. I had to be. Because somewhere along the way, probably during one of those late nights when we'd stay up talking about everything and nothing, I'd made the mistake of falling for my straight best friend. It was a cliché I'd sworn I'd never become. But the heart doesn't care about clichés or self-preservation. I never told him. What would be the point? Marcus was straight, and our friendship meant too much to risk on feelings he could never reciprocate. So I learned to live with the constant low-level ache of loving someone I couldn't have. I learned to smile when he talked about his latest girlfriend. To give relationship advice I didn't want to give. To pretend my heart didn't skip when he'd casually drape his arm around my shoulders or fall asleep on my side of the couch during movie nights. I learned to be the best friend. It's nothing more. We graduated. Both landed jobs in Chicago, Marcus at a prestigious architecture firm, me at a marketing agency. We kept the apartment in Wrigleyville, upgraded to a slightly less cramped 2-bedroom in Lincoln Park. Life continued in its comfortable, painful rhythm. That's how things stood 7 years after we first met. On that November evening when everything changed, the rain had started around 5. One of those cold November storms that turned Chicago streets into rivers and makes you question why anyone chooses to live in the Midwest. I'd worked late, trying to finish a campaign proposal that was due Friday, and by the time I got home, I was soaked through despite my umbrella. Marcus was already there, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was finding him in the kitchen, actually cooking. Marcus's relationship with cooking typically involved takeout menus and the occasional bowl of cereal. "Did I enter the wrong apartment?" I asked, hanging my dripping coat by the door. He turned, and I noticed immediately that something was off. His smile was strained, his eyes slightly red like he'd been rubbing them. "Hey, I made pasta." "Well, I attempted pasta. The jury's still out on whether it's edible. Are you okay?" I grabbed a kitchen towel to dry my hair, studying his face. After 7 years, I could read Marcus like a favorite book, and right now every page was screaming distress. "Yeah, no, maybe." He laughed, but it came out hollow. "Amanda and I broke up." Amanda was the latest girlfriend, a lawyer he'd been seeing for about 4 months. Longer than usual, which had made me wonder if this one might actually stick. The thought had filled me with a familiar mixture of happiness for him and quiet devastation for myself. "Oh, Marcus, I'm sorry." "What happened?" He turned off the stove, abandoning the pasta to its fate. "She said I was emotionally unavailable, which, isn't exactly new feedback. But then she said something else." He paused, his hands gripping the edge of the counter, knuckles white. The kitchen suddenly felt very small, the air heavy with more than just humidity from the rain. "That I light up when you text me. That I organize my schedule around yours without even realizing it." He finally looked at me, and there was something raw in his expression that made my breath catch. "She asked if I was in love with you." The world tilted. I must have misheard him. The rain was loud against the windows. Maybe it had distorted his words. "What?" I told her that was ridiculous. That we're best friends, that I'm straight, that she was being insecure. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I knew well. But then she left, and I sat here for 3 hours trying to figure out why I felt more devastated about losing her as an excuse to avoid this conversation than I felt about losing her. I didn't know what I was going to say. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might crack a rib. "I need to tell you something," he continued, his voice shaking now. "And I need you to just let me say it. Because if I don't say it now, I don't think I ever will." I nodded, incapable of words. 7 years ago, I met this guy in chemistry who made me laugh within 5 minutes of knowing him, who was smarter than anyone I'd ever met, but didn't make you feel stupid for not knowing things. Who listened when I talked, really listened, like what I said mattered. He took a step closer, and I found myself frozen, a deer in headlights. I told myself we were just friends. Best friends. And we are. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. I was too scared or too stupid or too convinced I knew who I was to acknowledge it. The rain hammered against the windows. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Or maybe that was just my pulse in my ears. "I notice everything about you, Ethan. How you bite your lower lip when you're concentrating. How you always order the same thing at our regular places but love trying new foods when we travel. How you cry at the end of the Iron Giant every single time, even though you've seen it a dozen times. How you're always cold, so you steal my hoodies, and I started buying extras just so you'd have them." His eyes were bright now, either from unshed tears or intensity, I couldn't tell. "I know that when you're stressed, you reorganize your bookshelf. That you hate talking on the phone, but you'll do it for me. That you take your coffee with too much sugar and not enough cream. That you think I don't notice when you're sad, but I always do." "Marcus, stop." My voice cracked. This couldn't be happening. This was a dream, or a particularly cruel fantasy my brain had conjured. "You're straight." "You've always been straight." "Thought I was," he said quietly. "But labels are they're words we use to understand ourselves, right? And maybe I've been using the wrong word. Or maybe sexuality isn't as fixed as we pretend it is. I don't know. All I know is that I can't stop thinking about you. About us. About whether you ever..." He swallowed hard. "Do you feel it too? Or have I just destroyed our friendship by admitting this?" The question hung in the air between us. 7 years of unspoken feelings, suddenly demanding acknowledgement. I could deny it. Laugh it off. Tell him he was confused, that he was just hurting from the breakup, and conflating friendship with something else. I could protect us both, preserve what we had, but I was so tired of pretending. "I've been in love with you since junior year," I whispered. "Maybe earlier. I never said anything because you were straight, because I valued our friendship too much to risk it, because I thought unrequited was better than nothing at all." The words fell between us like stones into still water, ripples spreading outward, changing everything. Marcus closed the distance between us in 2 steps. His hands came up to cup my face, and I could feel them trembling. "Can I?" he started, but didn't finish the question. He didn't need to. I kissed him, or he kissed me. Maybe we kissed each other. After 7 years of wondering, of imagining, of denying myself even the fantasy of this moment, the reality was overwhelming. His lips were soft, tentative at first, as if he was afraid I might disappear. I reached up, threading my fingers through his hair, pulling him closer. He made a small sound in the back of his throat that sent electricity down my spine. It wasn't a perfect kiss. Our noses bumped. Our teeth clicked once. We had to adjust angles. But it was real, and it was ours. And when we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted, voice rough. "I've never." "With a guy? We don't have to do anything," I said quickly, even though every nerve in my body was screaming otherwise. "We can take this slow. We can figure it out together. Or we can pretend this never happened, if you want." "I don't want to pretend," he said firmly. His thumb traced my cheekbone, a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. "I've been pretending for too long already. I'm terrified, and I don't know what this makes me, and I'm probably going to be bad at this, but I know I want to try. With you? If you'll have me? If I'll have you?" I laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "Marcus, I've wanted you for 7 years, and let's not waste any more time." He kissed me again, deeper this time, more confident. And as the rain continued to fall outside, and the forgotten pasta grew cold on the stove, I let myself fall into the moment I'd spent 7 years believing would never come. The next morning, I woke up in Marcus's bed. Nothing had happened, not beyond kissing until we were both dizzy, not talking until 3 in the morning. And finally falling asleep, tangled together in a way that was somehow both familiar and entirely new. But waking up with his arm draped across my waist, his breath warm against my neck, like crossing a threshold I couldn't uncross, I should have felt terrified. Instead, I felt peaceful in a way I hadn't in years. Marcus stirred behind me, his arm tightening slightly. "You're thinking too loud," he mumbled against my shoulder. "I can hear your brain from here." "Sorry," I whispered. "I'm just processing," shifted, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at me. His hair was a mess, there were sleep lines on his cheek, and he'd never looked more beautiful. "Regrets?" "No," I said honestly. "You. Only that it took us 7 years to get here." He traced a finger along my jawline, the touch light and exploratory. "Is it weird that this doesn't feel weird?" "I thought it would feel weird. Everything about us has always been easy," I pointed out. "Why should this be different?" "Because I'm a guy who's only ever been with women. You're a guy who's had actual relationships with men, and I have no idea what I'm doing." I turned to face him fully, our noses nearly touching. "You think I have this figured out?" "Marcus, you're my best friend. This is completely uncharted territory for both of us." He smiled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Okay, so we're both clueless. At least we're clueless together." "Exactly." Kissed him, brief and sweet, still marveling that I could do that now. "We'll figure it out as we go." "I should probably tell you," Marcus said, his expression turning more serious. "I'm going to mess this up sometimes. I'm going to say the wrong thing, or not understand something, or accidentally hurt you because I'm an idiot who's learning on the fly. I'm going to be paranoid and overthink everything because I've spent 7 years convinced this could never happen. And part of me is still waiting for you to realize this was a mistake." "Not a mistake," he said firmly, kissing my forehead. "Terrifying, yes. Complicated, definitely. But not a mistake. We stayed in bed longer than we should have, both of us late for work, neither of us willing to leave the bubble we'd created. Eventually, reality intrude, meetings, the basic demands of adult life. But something fundamental had shifted. The apartment that had been our shared space for years now felt different, charged with new possibility. Every casual touch carried weight. Every glance held meaning. The first test came 2 weeks later, when Marcus suggested we meet our friends at their usual Friday night spot bar in Wicker Park, where our college friend group still gathered monthly. "Are we telling them?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. We'd been existing in our own private world, and the thought of exposing this fragile new thing to outside scrutiny made my stomach churn. Marcus paused, his hand halfway to his jacket. "Do you want to?" "I asked you first." He smiled at that, recognizing my deflection for what it was. He crossed the room, taking my hands in his. "I'm not ashamed of this, Ethan. Of us. But I also know that once we tell people, there's no taking it back. And I don't want you to feel like I'm not ready to commit to this publicly if we wait, but I also don't want to hide you. I spent 7 years hiding how I felt. I don't want to do that anymore." I squeezed his hands, warmth spreading through my chest. "Let's tell them." The bar was crowded when we arrived. Our friends already claimed their usual corner booth. There were 6 of them college friends who'd all stayed in Chicago, who'd been at our graduation parties and housewarming and countless ordinary moments in between. Sarah saw us first. She'd been one of my first friends at Northwestern, a fellow scholarship kid who'd understood the particular anxiety of feeling perpetually behind. "Finally, we ordered you guys the usual," slid into the booth, and I felt Marcus's hand find mine under the table, our fingers interlacing. The simple gesture steadied me. The conversation flowed easily at first work complaints. Weekend plans? An ongoing debate about whether deep dish or thin crust pizza was superior? I was starting to wonder if we'd have to make an announcement when Jake, Marcus's roommate from freshman year, asked the question that changed everything. "So Marcus, how's Amanda? You've been quiet about her lately." Marcus's thumb stroked across my knuckles, a silent reassurance. "We broke up about 2 weeks ago." A chorus of sympathetic sounds followed. "Sorry, man," Jake said. "What happened?" "She helped me realize something important," Marcus said, his voice steady. "About myself. About what I really wanted." He pulled our joined hands up to rest on the table, making a statement without words. The table went silent. 6 pairs of eyes locked onto our intertwined fingers, then moved to our faces, then back to our hands, as if they couldn't quite process what they were seeing. Sarah broke the silence. "Are you two together?" I finished. "Yes, as in together," Jake asked, his expression confused. "But Marcus, you've always been straight?" Marcus supplied. "Yeah, I thought so too. Turns out sexuality is more complicated than I gave it credit for." "How long?" This from Emily, who'd been Marcus's girlfriend briefly. "Sophomore year, before they'd mutually decided they were better as friends." "Officially 2 weeks," Marcus said. "Unofficially probably a lot longer than either of us was willing to admit." The silence stretched, uncomfortable and assessing. I felt my defenses rising, preparing for rejection or worse. These were Marcus's friends first, people who'd known him longer, who might decide I'd somehow corrupted or confused him. Then Sarah started laughing. My God, she gasped between giggles. "We are all idiots. How did we not see this?" "See what?" I asked, confused. "You too." She gestured between us. "You've been basically married for 7 years. The only difference is now you're actually admitting it." "She's not wrong," Emily added, a smile spreading across her face. "Marcus, you literally once left a date early because Ethan texted you that he was sick. And Ethan, you've been turning down guys for years because they weren't quite right. Meanwhile, you've been living in domestic bliss with Marcus. I thought you were in the longest slow-burn friends to lovers situation I'd ever witnessed." Another friend, Chris, chimed in. "I just figured you were both too stubborn to do anything about it. The tension I'd been holding released all at once." "You're all okay with this?" "Okay with it?" Jake laughed. "Dude, I'm relieved. Watching you two dance around each other was exhausting. I've lost count of how many times I almost just locked you in a room and refused to let you out until you figured your shit out." The conversation exploded after that questions. Jokes, demands for details about how it happened. Marcus's hand never left mine, and every time I glanced at him, he was smiling. The kind of unreserved happiness I rarely saw on his face. Later, after we'd said our goodbyes and were walking back to the L station, Marcus pulled me into a doorway and kissed me, heedless of the people walking past. "Thank you," he said when we broke apart. "For what?" "For being brave enough for both of us. I don't think I could have done that without you." I cupped his face, running my thumb along his cheekbone. "We're in this together, remember? You don't have to be brave alone anymore." The next few weeks were a study in navigation, figuring out how to be romantic partners while still being best friends, learning each other's bodies. The way we already knew each other's minds, Marcus approached it the way he approached everything, with endearing enthusiasm and occasional spectacular mishaps. He Googled articles about gay relationships, asked me endless questions about my experiences, and tried so hard to get it right that I sometimes had to remind him we were figuring this out together, not studying for an exam. The physical aspect was an adjustment. Marcus had the enthusiasm but lacked the experience, which led to some awkward moments and a lot of laughter. "I'm sorry," he said one evening, flopping back against the pillows after a particularly clumsy attempt at, well, things. "I feel like a teenager again, except teenagers usually have some idea what they're doing." I propped myself up on my elbow, looking down at him. His cheeks were flushed, his hair a mess from my hands. "You know what I love about this? That I'm absolutely terrible at it. That you're trying. That you care enough to be nervous. That every time is new for you, and you're choosing to share that with me." I kissed his shoulder. "We have the rest of our lives to figure out the physical stuff. There's no rush." He pulled me down against his chest, his arms wrapping around me. How did I get so lucky? I asked myself the same question every day. It wasn't all easy. There were moments when Marcus's internalized assumptions about sexuality and masculinity would surface in ways that stung. Like when we were planning to visit his family for Thanksgiving, and he hesitated before adding, "Maybe we don't tell my parents yet." Not because I'm ashamed, but because they're traditional, and I need time to figure out how to explain this. Or when we'd be out, and he'd automatically drop my hand if he saw someone from work. A reflexive response to years of performing heterosexuality. Each time, we'd talk about it. Sometimes the conversations were difficult, with hurt feelings and raised voices, but we always came back to the same truth. We were committed to this, to each other, and that meant working through the hard parts. Marcus started seeing a therapist. Wanting to unpack his feelings about his sexuality and identity with a professional, he asked if I'd be okay with him joining an online support group for people discovering their queerness later in life. "You don't need my permission," I told him. "No. But I want you to know that I'm taking this seriously. That I'm not just experimenting or going through a phase. I'm trying to understand myself better, so I can be better for you." Watching Marcus put in the work. Seeing him actively choose me every day, despite how much easier his life would be if he'd just stayed in the closet, made me fall in love with him all over again. Thanksgiving arrived with all its complicated familial obligations. We compromised. We'd spend Thursday with Marcus's family in the suburbs. Friday with my family in Ohio. We agreed not to explicitly come out, but we wouldn't lie if asked directly. Marcus's family welcomed me the way they always had, warmly, treating me like an extension of their son. His mother, Grace, hugged me tightly and insisted I looked too thin. His father, David, immediately enlisted me to help with the turkey. His younger sister, Sophie, rolled her eyes at all of us and demanded we play board games after dinner. It should have felt normal. It almost did. Except for the fact that every casual touch between Marcus and me felt weighted. Every moment of eye contact a secret we were keeping. Sophie cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping with dishes. At 19, she was sharp and observant in a way that reminded me of Marcus. "So," she said casually, "when are you two going to tell everyone you're together?" I nearly dropped the plate I was washing. "What?" "Please. I have eyes. Marcus has been looking at you like you hung the moon since you got here. And you keep doing that thing where you touch his arm when you talk to him, like you can't help yourself." She smirked. "Also, I follow you on Instagram, and Marcus commented beautiful with a heart emoji on your last post. Marcus doesn't use heart emojis for anyone. I set the plate down carefully, buying time. Does anyone else know? I don't think so. Mom and Dad are oblivious as usual. But I know my brother, and I know he's been different these last few months. Happier. More settled. She paused. He's in love with you, isn't he? Yes, I admitted quietly. And I'm in love with him. Good. She hugged me, quick and fierce. You make him happy. You always have. I'm glad you both finally figured it out. Your parents will come around, she said confidently. They love Marcus, and they love you. It might take them a minute, but they'll get there. And if they don't, they'll have to deal with me. Marcus found us later, his eyes questioning. I mouthed later, and he nodded, trusting me. That night, in the guest room, where we were supposedly sleeping in separate beds, pushed together because there wasn't enough space elsewhere. In the house, Marcus held me close. Sophie knows, I whispered. No. She texted me. Told me if I hurt you, she'd destroy me. I smiled against his chest. I like your sister. She likes you more than she likes me, I think. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. Are you okay? With how today went? Yeah. Are you? I feel guilty, he admitted. Like I'm lying to them by not telling them. But I also know that telling them now on Thanksgiving would make it about the announcement instead of about us. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. We'll tell them when the time is right. There's no rush. I love you, he said, the words still new enough to make my heart stutter. I don't think I say it enough. You say it all the time, I countered. Maybe not with words, but with every action, every choice. I feel it, Marcus. The next day in Ohio was different. My parents had known I was gay since I was 17. They'd met the few boyfriends I'd brought home over the years. But they'd also met Marcus countless times, always as my best friend, my roommate. My platonic other half, walking through the door holding his hand, felt like rewriting history. My mom took one look at us and burst into tears. Oh, honey, she said, pulling me into a hug, then pulling Marcus in too. Finally, I've been waiting years for this. My dad clapped Marcus on the shoulder. Welcome to the family, son. Officially this time. Dinner was easier after that. My parents asking gentle questions about how we got together, sharing stories about how obvious our feelings had been to everyone but us. My mom showed Marcus's embarrassing childhood photos, and my dad taught him the family recipe for apple pie as we drove back to Chicago that night. Marcus's hand in mine on the center console, I felt something settle in my chest. Not all families would accept us, we both knew that. But we had enough love, enough support, to face whatever came next. Winter settled over Chicago with its usual brutality, but our apartment had never felt warmer. Marcus and I fell into new rhythms, morning coffee shared in comfortable silence. Goodnight kisses that sometimes turned into more. Weekend mornings, spent tangled in each other rather than rushing to separate plans, but we also maintained the foundations of our friendship. Movie nights where we'd argue about plot holes, cooking disasters that ended in pizza delivery, the easy companionship that had always been our strength. I was worried about this part, Marcus admitted one Saturday afternoon. We were attempting to assemble a bookshelf, a task that was testing both our spatial reasoning and our patience. That if we became a couple, we'd lose what made us work as friends. And, I asked, holding a shelf steady while he wrestled with the screws. And I think I was an idiot to worry. You're still my best friend. You're just also the person I'm in love with. Turns out those things aren't mutually exclusive. It's a revolutionary concept, I teased. He abandoned the bookshelf to kiss me, thorough and unhurried. I love you, he said against my lips. Have I mentioned that today? Only 3 times. You're slacking. Let me remedy that. He kissed me again, and the bookshelf remained unfinished for several more hours. The new year brought new challenges. Marcus's firm was working on a major project that had him at the office until midnight most nights. My agency landed a demanding client that required constant attention. We had to work to maintain connection amidst the chaos of our careers. I miss you, Marcus, said one night, his voice tinny through my phone speaker. It was past 11. I was still at the office, and he was calling from his desk across town. I miss you too. This is temporary, right? The insanity? God, I hope so, he sighed. I keep thinking about what I want our life to look like long term. And it's not this two ships passing in the night, communicating through phone calls and text messages. What does it look like? I asked, curious. I don't know exactly. But it involves you. Always you. Maybe a dog. Definitely a better apartment with a kitchen that doesn't make me want to cry every time I try to cook. Vacations where we actually leave the city. A life that we're building together, intentionally, not just falling into by default. My chest felt tight with emotion. I want that too, yeah. Yeah, all of it. The dog, the kitchen, the intentional life. You. Good, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Because I'm kind of all in on this, Ethan, on us. I know it's only been a few months, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. Not as my roommate, not as my best friend, as my partner. Marcus Chen, are you getting sappy on me at 11:30 on a Tuesday night? Maybe is it working? Completely. March brought unseasonably warm weather and an unexpected complication. Marcus's firm was sending him to New York for 3 months to work on a high-profile project. It was a huge opportunity, the kind that could make his career. It was also 3 months apart. Come with me, Marcus, said the night he told me. We were on our couch, his arms around me, both of us pretending we weren't devastated. You could work remotely for a while, couldn't you? My client presentations are all in person. And the Peterson campaign launches in May. Need to be here for that. I turned to face him. This is huge for you, Marcus. You can't turn it down. I want to be away from you for 3 months. I don't want that either. But we'll make it work. People maintain relationships long distance all the time. He didn't look convinced. What if this changes things? What if being apart makes you realize you're better off without me? I cupped his face, making him look at me. That's not going to happen. Marcus, I've loved you for 7 years. 3 months apart isn't going to change that. Promise? Promise. The first few weeks were harder than either of us anticipated. The 3-hour time difference meant our schedules rarely aligned. Video calls were interrupted by work emergencies. Text messages went hours without responses. The apartment felt cavernously empty without him. I threw myself into work. Staying late at the office to avoid going home to our too quiet space. Marcus did the same, his texts coming at odd hours as he pulled all-nighters on the project. 6 weeks in, we had our first real fight. It started over something small Marcus had forgotten to call when he'd said he would. And I'd stayed up until 2 in the morning waiting. When he finally called the next day, exhausted and apologetic, I was too hurt and tired to be gracious about it. I said I was sorry, he said, frustration creeping into his voice. I got pulled into a meeting that ran late and my phone died. It wasn't intentional. You could have borrowed someone's phone. Sent an email, something. I was working, Ethan. I can't drop everything every time you need reassurance. The words hit like a slap. Is that what you think this is? Me needing reassurance? I'm not some insecure boyfriend who can't handle you having a life. I just wanted you to do what you said you'd do. I wanted you to understand that sometimes life gets in the way of plans. I'm doing my best here. Maybe your best isn't good enough. Silence. Heavy and horrible. What are we doing? Marcus asked finally, his voice small. Are we really going to let distance break us? I sank onto my bed, all the fight draining out of me. No, God, no. I'm sorry. I miss you. And I'm taking that out on you, which isn't fair. I miss you too. So much it physically hurts sometimes. I heard him take a shaky breath. I love you, Ethan. This job, this opportunity, none of it means anything if I lose you. You're not going to lose me, I said firmly. We're just going through a rough patch. We'll get through it. How do you know? Because we always do. Because what we have is worth fighting for. And because in 5 weeks, you're coming home. And I'm going to kiss you until you forget what it's like to breathe, and none of this distance will matter anymore. Laughed, watery but genuine. 5 weeks. We can do 5 weeks. Be adjusted after that. Set realistic expectations about communication. Planned a weekend visit where I flew to New York, and we spent 2 glorious days remembering why we were doing this. Started a shared playlist where we'd add songs that reminded us of each other. It wasn't perfect. But it worked. Marcus's flight landed on a Friday afternoon in early June. I'd taken the day off, cleaned the apartment obsessively, and arrived 3:35 a.m. at O'Hare 2 hours early because couldn't stand to wait at home. When he finally emerged from the terminal, looking rumpled and exhausted from the flight, my heart did the same stupid flutter it had been doing for years. He dropped his bag the moment he saw me and closed the distance between us in long strides. The kiss was desperate and relieved. 3 months of missing each other poured into the connection of lips and the tangle of tongues. "I'm never leaving you again," he murmured against my mouth. "I don't care if they offer me a project on the moon. I'm not doing long distance again." "It's dramatic," I said, but I was smiling. "But I appreciate the sentiment." "I mean it, Ethan. Being away from you, it made me realize something." "What's that?" He pulled back just enough to look at me, his dark eyes serious. "I want to marry you." Time stopped. "What?" "Not right now," he clarified quickly. "I know we're young, and we've technically only been together for 8 months, but I know that I want to spend my life with you. And I wanted you to know that this isn't temporary for me, that when I think about my future, every version of it has you in it." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only stare at this man who'd been my best friend, my roommate, my impossible dream, and was now promising me forever. "You don't have to say anything," Marcus continued, nervous now. "I'm not asking you to marry me right this second. I just wanted you to know where my head is, where my heart is. I love you," I finally managed. "And yes, someday, when we're ready. Yes." His smile could have lit up the entire airport. He kissed me again, heedless of the people flowing around us, and I kissed him back with everything I had. 6 months later, on the anniversary of that rainy November night when everything changed, Marcus took me back to our apartment building. But instead of going inside, he led me to the roof of space we'd been to countless times to watch the sunset or escape the summer heat. Tonight, it was transformed. String lights hung between the air conditioning units. Blankets and pillows created a cozy nest with a view of the Chicago skyline. A bottle of champagne sat chilling in a bucket. "Marcus, what is this?" "A do-over," he said, taking my hands. That night, 14 months ago, was perfect. But it was also terrifying and uncertain, and we were both kind of a mess. I wanted to give us a moment that was just about celebration. About choosing each other. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple silver band. My breath caught. "Ethan Wright, you have been my best friend, my anchor, my home for almost 8 years. You've seen me at my worst, and somehow still chose to love me. You've been patient with me as I figured out who I am, what I want, where I belong." He dropped to one knee, and tears were already streaming down my face. "I belong with you. I want to build a life with you, raise a dog with you, argue about furniture with you, grow old with you. Will you marry me?" "Yes," I said, pulling him up and into a kiss. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto my finger. A perfect fit, and then we were both crying and laughing and holding each other as the city lights twinkled around us. "I have something for you too," I said. Reaching into my own pocket, I pulled out a matching band. I was going to wait until Christmas, but this seems better. His eyes widened. "You are planning to propose?" "Great minds," I said, sliding the ring onto his finger. "I love you, Marcus Chen. I've loved you for so long that I don't remember what it's like not to love you. And I want to spend the rest of my life showing you exactly how much." We stayed on that roof for hours, drinking champagne, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for a future that was finally, definitively our Zauer wedding was small, just close friends and family. In a garden in late spring when everything was blooming, Sophie was Marcus's best woman, Sarah was mine. Our parents cried, our friends cheered, and when the officiant pronounced us married, Marcus kissed me like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between. At the reception, During our first dance, Marcus whispered in my ear, "Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me? For being patient? For loving me even when I was too afraid to love you back? Thank you for being brave enough to take the leap," I countered. "For choosing this? For choosing us." "It's always us," he agreed. "From now until forever." And as we swayed together, surrounded by everyone we loved, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The 7 years of friendship. The moment of confession. The months of figuring it out. The challenges we'd faced and overcome. Some love stories are epic from the start, fireworks and grand gestures and instant certainty. Ours had been quieter, a slow burn that built from friendship to something deeper. But it was ours, authentic and hard-won, and worth every moment of waiting. Marcus pulled back to look at me, his eyes bright with happiness and promise. "I love you, Ethan Chunwright. I love you too. Marcus Chunwright." And somewhere in the universe, I like to think that our 18-year-old selves, the chemistry lab, partners who'd had no idea what they were starting, were smiling.